Now, water scarcity in the country continues to be a concern. Johannesburg Water says it's closely monitoring its severely strained systems. Several towers and reservoirs are at critically low levels. The entity is calling on residents to adhere to level 1 water restrictions. To discuss this further, we are joined by Michael Sun, who's Johannesburg MMC for Infrastructure and Environment. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, MMC. Let's just start off with what you mean by the systems are constrained. What is causing this? Is it attributed to the constant rolling blackouts, or do we have a water shortage at this point?
Good evening, Heidi, and thank you very much. It's always lovely to be with you. To answer your question, there are really two factors. One, of course, we are experiencing weather patterns. You know, some weeks ago there was the heavy storms and the flash floods, and now for the past 2 weeks we've been having heat waves in the city of Johannesburg. So naturally, water consumption will go up. But the biggest culprit in causing those water constraints is the load shedding. The problem is whenever there's load shedding, us as residents will be impacted, but your key infrastructure such as infrastructure and rainwater that are managed by Eskom in terms of power supply, and Johannesburg water infrastructure that are, of course, you know, through the city power networks. Although there are arrangements in place, so these facilities are not impacted because of load shedding. But whenever there is a rolling blackout, it does cause the voltage to dip. Whenever there's a dip in terms of voltage, your pumps will trip, and that, you know, causes hours of outage. And because of the natural flow of water, you can't immediately pump water into the reservoirs as quickly as it's been consumed. Therefore, you'll see several systems in the city of Johannesburg running critically low in terms of water supply. Today we had a major situation in the Hilda Crane system where our residents didn't have water for many hours. But the good thing is that we managed to overcome that, and I think 6 o'clock already the pumps would have started to pump and the water back into the system.
But we can't rule out, MMC, the impact that the constant rolling blackouts are having in terms of pumping water to the reservoirs.
Absolutely, we cannot. One of the most devastating effects of the rolling blackouts is that it causes a major strain on the electricity grid. Johannesburg has an extremely old network, as you have been out there with me, Heidi, to see the age and the deterioration of our network. So whenever that happens, we manually have to go switch on and off. And with the rush in current, that damages a lot of the infrastructure badly. The other day I saw photos of our substation wall being blown open because of infrastructure inside the substation was damaged, and that inevitably causes an impact on the water supply. And again, you know, as much as the technical team are out there to ensure that both electricity and water outages are being attended to, there are just some natural technical issues that water cannot get back up quickly as electricity. So we will go out there to ensure that we fight those issues. The Joburg Water team are on the ground just about 24/7 to ensure that whenever there are outages, we go out there. If there are contingency measures required, we'll certainly deploy mobile tankers and JoJo tanks to those residents affected.
I want to ask you how serious the problem is. I mean, you've just answered one of my questions about whether or not you are working with other stakeholders such as Rand Water to try and deal with the situation, because I know a few months ago we had a situation where Rand Water was not clearly communicating what the problem was, and only later did we understand that it had to do with the constant rolling blackouts that were causing issues with the pump system. But how serious is the situation, MMC? So if you're telling me that the systems are constrained, the reservoirs are under pressure, how serious is this? Is it a matter of days, or is it still under control?
We think it's a very serious issue. Water is something that you can't go out with for hours. You know, electricity, residents may be very much understanding and just go grinding teeth for a few hours. But water, it's something that we really can't go out with. We issue notices and information to our residents based on good faith. We do want to communicate and let our residents be prepared. Whether you're going to be out for an hour or 2 hours or even half of a day, and sometimes even for a full day. So it's not to communicate to throw any other entities under the bus, but we feel that it is important that we manage the situation. We will certainly offer our assistance, our resources. Although having said that, our own resources are very much constrained. There's a budget constraint, there's a human resource constraint, and spare parts constraint. But we need to ensure that we work with other entities such as Water and Eskom to ensure that we not only wanting to get away from the load shedding impact, but we also want to ensure that any other negative impacts because of the water constraint as a result of load shedding are also being attended to and resolved.
Perhaps just give us some of the areas, MMC, that are of concern at this stage, that residents really need to adhere to these water restrictions.
Absolutely. So I mentioned earlier on, Hildecrane is a critically low area, but that's been sorted out. Our honeydew system remains critical low at the reservoir. So I'm reading from the list, so if you just forgive me. And your Parktown 2 reservoir is stable. So not all the systems are low. Your Linden systems are low but stable. And Hurst Hill are extremely low. So we really want to ask our residents to say that we know it's hot, the heat wave is really unbearable, but please do use water sparingly, because even when we need to replenish the towers and reservoirs, that does take a bit of time. It's not where we open the taps at the supply intake, the reservoirs will fill up immediately. It does take time. So please do bear with us and do use water sparingly. We are on restriction level 1. In other words, please do not wash your driveways. Please don't fill up your pool. And then please, if needs be, water your gardens in the evening outside the restrictive hours.
I mean, you mentioned Hurst Hill, and that concerns me because we do know that that is the area where Helen Joseph Hospital is. MMC, I just need to ask you a question off topic with the water issue. Just the last question around the vandalism and theft and the pressure on substations across the city of Johannesburg because of the constant rolling blackouts. We've been told by Eskom board this morning that it's inevitable that the country will be facing stage 2 and 3 for possibly the next 2 years. That's not good news, because these criminals come out according to the schedule, and our substations are at risk.
That is the other major concern we have, and we've also taken note of the announcement by Eskom that stage 2 or even 3 is here to stay for at least the next 2 years. So what we are working on is that we're looking to reduce these stages. We want to move our customers in the city of Johannesburg.
MMC, unfortunately, we've lost your audio. I'm not sure if you're still there. Okay, it seems as though we have lost the MMC, but it would have been interesting to hear what they are doing in terms of trying to get our substations to be functional and safe, given the vandalism and theft we have been seeing. That was Michael Sun, Johannesburg MMC for Infrastructure and Environment.